Acustica Audio created a monster. It's called Tiger, and it might be the best compressor plugin to date. Let's take a look at it. All right, sit down, get comfortable, because there is a lot to unfold and look at for Acustica Audio Tiger. This compressor is beyond deep. It's deep for good reasons. The first one is it's feature-packed, but the features that this compressor has are pretty rare to see in a plugin or a piece of hardware. They put all their experience here with both plugins and capturing and sampling analog in one plugin. So there's a lot to see, and of course Acustica gave this guy the task to show you how to master this plugin. Let's start by saying what Tiger is not. Tiger is not a direct emulation of any one particular hardware, although it has curves sampled from many analog units used in previous plugins. We can take a look at that right now. Here in mode, you can see Deep Space, Sand, Ultramarine, Tiger, Magenta, and so on. So if you have some of the Acustica plugins, you might be familiar with those names. So we have those curves, many of those curves modeled in this plugin. We also don't have a final clipper limiter here, not to be redundant with other product that Acustica Audio has. With Tiger, you don't get one plugin, but you get four. The normal Tiger, which is this one we are looking at right now, Tiger Master, which might look the same, but for example, we have a different intervals for the knobs to be more precise as mastering requires. Also, instead of RMS values here in the meter, we have LUFS values, a continue mode mid-side function, and here at the top for the sidechain, instead of having the sidechain volume, here we have an extremely useful stereo link that goes from full to full side, all variable, and this is extremely useful in mastering. Then we have the Tiger Mix variation, which is very similar to the normal Tiger, which is of course less CPU power, a little more intuitive, easy and fast to set up, with functions that are more streamlined, but still with the same quality and most of the same key functions that we'll see in detail in a minute. And if you want to make Tiger literally your go-to compressor from now on, there's also the Fire the Tiger version, which is not just a more streamlined version. You can literally look at this like a different plugins, because by combining, for example, all the time constant options, you can see this slider from ultra fast to ultra slow. The results are going to be some really unique combinations of attack and release, and by consequence the behavior of the compressor, because one of the key features of Tiger is how much focus they put on tweakability of attack, release, and I'm actually very happy about this, the sidechain. Because if you know compression well, you know that one big, many times overlooked by people who still didn't completely master compression as a concept, is how important is the sidechain, the detector, right? We have so many different types of compressors, different models, different topologies, many times because of their detector. And the differences in the sidechain and the detector are one of the biggest reasons as to why compressor A will sound and react differently from compressor B, and why would you pick this one for vocals and this one for bass and so on. Tiger has so many options. On top of that, Tiger is not just a compressor. We can start taking a look at the one very unique feature that it has, the MORPH knob. Comp limit saturator in a fully variable, easy to control knob down here. And as you can see, we have two types of compressors in one plugin, the fast and the slow. And that's the key, and how I suggest you to look at this compressor, especially for complex material like piano, full mixes. This is a great mastering compressor, by the way. Vocals. With this one, you have full control on how to handle the transient, the fast audio events, and at the same time, a different sets of control for the sustained, long, slow audio events. Let's start with the GUI. We have input at the top, left and right, output at the bottom, left and right again. Here at the top, we have a preamp with a saturation volume to inject a little bit of saturation in it, button for the external sidechain if we decide to use it, and a sidechain volume. Below that, we have a full parametric sidechain EQ. You can, of course, monitor the sidechain, Below that, we have the modes. Like I said, these are all curves sampled from analog gear, and these curves will work in synergy with the attack, the release, and the unique features that we have. For example, the power, this P knob here, which I'll explain you what it does in a second. Then we have the attack and release modifier for the first time in an Acustica plugin. We have a ratio that is common for both the fast on the left and the slow compressor, but we have two different thresholds: 2 makeup gain, common attack, release, and respective modifier, and then a blend knob between the fast compressor and the slow compressor. And down below we have 2 independent mix knobs. Below that, the big output knob, and 2 independent, again, MORPH knobs. The morphs the compressor into a limiter, into a saturator seamlessly, and you can tweak these 2 independently between the fast and the slow compressor. It is a lot. I'm gonna use drums at the beginning for this example because it trends in material. It's the easiest for you to understand the very unique controls that this compressor have. We're gonna try to do one thing at a time. So at first, I'm just gonna use the fast compressor right now. We're gonna keep the settings, let's say attack at 10 and a pretty fast release so you can hear all the modifiers in default position, and then I'm just gonna scroll through the different modes so you can get an idea of these curves. Okay, so you're here without changing anything, no change in attack, release, threshold, ratio, makeup gain, nothing. You hear that these curves here make the compressor react in wildly different ways. First one to master is all these different curves, and this is what I would suggest you to do if you wanna start learning of them. Don't touch anything else. Always change one variable at a time when you wanna learn a plugin that is deep and complex like Tiger. Let's leave everything as is and let's try really quick the preamp section with the saturation volume. So very subtle type of saturation. Of course, you can increase it by increasing the input if you want more color, and this is pretty much self-explanatory. We're gonna leave that off for now. Now, let's talk about the P knob, the power function. This is a really important control. It allows you to change the detection in the sidechain from peak detection to RMS detection. What does it mean? It means that the attack and release will be written based on this control. 2 is the default, 1 is full peak, and from 3 to 5 you go into the RMS and the average. Again, I'm not gonna change anything else. I'm just gonna move this knob. Here, listen to the difference. Okay, don't think that it's just a slower release, because it might seem like this at first. You hear the material is kept under the curve the entire time. But like I said, it affects the attack and release because of how the compressor sees the material and what it reacts to. If it reacts to every single fast events, right? If we were to look at a waveform and see all the little lines, if the compressor reacts to every single one, it will write an attack and a release for every single event, right? If it reacts to the RMS, to the energy of the material, then it will write the attack and release based on all longer events, so less frequently, okay? So this is a really important control, and of course, I need to condense the video. Otherwise, I would have to do 10 different examples for each knob. But in this case, we can quickly do another one by using this. I'm just gonna open this on a piano. And now I'm gonna start introducing the slow, because a piano is the kind of material when you want the interaction of these two compressors. So I'm gonna switch all the way with the blend knob to solo to just listen to the action of the slow compressor. Now I'm gonna slowly go like 3/4 slow and a little bit of fast. You hear the two compressors, fast and slow, allow, in this case, because there was the goal to have this almost a leveler kind of feeling where the density of the low notes, the sustained notes come up and stays there and just fills up the space, while at the same time controlling the peaks, but not in a way that you're choking them, which is what often happens with compressors, especially on piano, okay? So this was just an example, and again, I didn't touch none of the attack and release mods. We are going back to the drum and do another example and explain what those are. The first one we are looking at is the SHMOD, the shape modulator for the attack. This control allows the attack curve to be deformed based on the sampled curves of the most powerful compressors out there. The result is that given the same attack, which I'm gonna slow down a little because it's gonna be easier to understand, values below the default, which is 2, will tend to reduce transients and choke transients, while values above 2 hold will tend to preserve more the transients, even a high compressor value. So without touching anything else, let's start with 2 and then move the SHMOD. Okay, same settings for the attack. We are just changing the shape of the attack. So if you imagine the attack to be a straight line like this, a diagonal straight line, this mod would morph it, you know, and it would morph it based again on the sampled compressors. Just by moving this knob, this compressor sounded like three of my favorite compressors. There was the total smash of the Dynamite, there was the openness of a Varimu, so it really is an important control. Similar to this, you will find the release shape modifier. Turning it counterclockwise, it goes down to 1/10 of the value of the set release here on the knob above that. Turning it clockwise, it can go up to quadruple the nominal level, which again is set with the actual release knob. This is gonna be very useful for shaping the pumping effect of your compressor, or to try to, for example, in a mastering environment, to really fine tune it so that your compression can be invisible, as transparent as it can be. Arguably, I think the release mod is even more important, especially in a mastering context, to really fine tune the compression. Again, let's do some example with drums, simply because it's easier to understand, and maybe we'll do like a full mix. Default position is 2, we'll go from there. All right, so I changed a couple of modes while moving the release mod control, so you understand that each curve, each mode will give you different curves. So all these controls, they interact with each other. Note in particular how interesting is this 3/4 position between 2 and 3. You get this amazing breathing, in this case for this drum bus, okay? Keep that in mind, because that's a trick that is used on so many records for a variety of elements, whether it is the pumping of synths or sidechaining the kick to the rest of the music, or the vocals like we see today very often in pop music. So that control right there is a bag of tricks. Master and really understand how to use it. Now we're almost at the end of this, so stay with me, but we are taking a look at probably one of the most exciting and unique feature of this compressor, the MORPH button here. So I'm still just using the fast compressor, just so we add one variable at a time. The good news about the MORPH knob is there's really nothing to set other than the MORPH knob. So you get a fully variable and morphing, compression, limiter, and saturation. Let's try on drum. And of course, because you have two of them, you can play with these two. Like for example, you can use more saturation and limiting on the fast control and less on the slow. Or for a bass, for example, you could do the opposite. Okay, this was a quick example. I was trying to play with all the controls here. So the slow compressor will give you the breathing, right? In this case, you hear the cymbals going like this, and then the saturation of that part of the compressor, and then going on the fast and the transient part of the compressor, again, playing with the saturation to see how much I can distort to give drum energy, and at the same time backing off with a mix knob in this case. And the fact that you have all this control and all this independency between the two, I think really makes this compressor one of a kind, first of all. And right now I'm just working on drums because, like I said, it's the easiest, but remember, we have a mastering version for it, and that would be a full lesson on its own on how to tweak the mastering version on a mix. Let me quickly fire up the mix version. You still have all the curves, and of course the big version has the oversampling. This one is less CPU. You also have a zero latency version for all of them. Let's set it up really quick on a beat. Okay, just to show you, you also have this version included, and I didn't mention it, we have a DS button in all the models. This engages what they call the deep space and allows you to offset the sidechain, as in the signal that the compressor detects and reacts to achieve lower attack and release times with the same distortion. In the manual, you will find, if you're interested to read more about it, how they do it and the technical explanation, but it's gonna be a long video already. I don't wanna talk too much, but this is what you also can do. You can reduce attack and release times without increasing the distortion, which is usually what happens with compressors when you go down to zero attack times, so to speak. Let's do a last quick example using Steel Tiger, normal plugin, but in flat GUI, just so you guys can see the flat GUI if you're not a fan of the 3D analog-like. But it's still the same compressor with the same controls and everything. Just let's try this on vocals.
I guess I kinda like the way you help me escape. Now the day bleeds into nightfall, and you're not here to get me through it all. Let my guard down, now you pull the rug. I was getting kinda used to being someone you loved.
Just by starting with the mode deep space, and I'm just using the slow compressor in this case, you hear how it handles this, by the way, extremely dynamic vocal. You can see it from the wave, it's this purple one.
I guess I kinda like the way you help me escape. Now the day bleeds into nightfall, and you're not here to get me through it all. Let my guard down, now you pull the rug. I was getting kinda used to being someone you love.
Beautiful, and you hear how much more sensitive in this case the morph control was, going from compression to limited to saturation. Using it in the slow part of the compressor, it's kind of very handed right away. Of course, it depends on the gain staging and everything, but this is, so to speak, the part of long audio events. So of course, you're gonna have more time, more virtual real estate to saturate, and it's gonna be more obvious and apparent because the audio event is slower as opposed to a snare, a kick, where literally the time for you to detect a change or to detect distortion, so to speak, is few milliseconds. Anyway, I've been blabbering way too much for this, but like I said, Tiger is a deep plugin, and it was worth to actually take a deep dive into it and show you guys, to the best of my abilities, what this new plugin from Acustica Audio is all about. Any questions? Leave them in the comments down below. If you like this video, please don't forget to leave a like. The link to Tiger is gonna be in the info box as well. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up.